My name is Soledad. I'm 39 years old, and for the past 8 years, I've poured myself into building something at Tecnopuente, Spain. Something I was proud of. Loyalty, performance, leadership. All boxes ticked, all goals met. Every quarter, I exceeded my KPIs. Every crisis, I was the first to volunteer to lead the recovery effort. I even trained half of the managers we have today. But on one rainy Thursday afternoon, all of it became irrelevant in 5 words. Congratulations to my niece Alicia. I blinked. I wasn't sure I'd heard right. The conference room erupted in polite applause, but in my ears there was only a low, insistent buzzing. Alicia smiled as though she'd just discovered gravity, rising with a dazzling grin and a modest wave, as if she hadn't just leapt past an entire career ladder in 4 months. Alicia will be our new director of strategic operations, announced my boss, Alberto. She brings fresh perspective and energy, and I trust she'll help us grow. Fresh perspective. That's what they always say when promoting someone young, green, and deeply connected to power. Alicia was Alberto's sister's daughter. Everyone knew it. No one ever said it out loud. I stood frozen, still holding the presentation remote from the quarterly review I had just finished. My strategy that saved the company 1.2 million euros in supply chain costs, the same review Alberto had praised moments before, handing my work to his niece. He turned to me with a smile. Soledad, can you help Alicia transition into the role? You've been instrumental in getting our operations to where they are. Instrumental, like a wrench or a cog. Useful, replaceable. I nodded slowly, forcing a smile. Of course, happy to help. But inside, something shifted. Not anger, not sadness, just perfect, immaculate clarity. 8 years ago, I came here after a brutal divorce. My ex-husband had taken half our assets and all my confidence. I'd had to rebuild from the ground up. Tecnopuente was supposed to be my foundation. So, I worked late, gave up vacations, stayed in the office until the lights went out. I brought my daughter in on weekends when I couldn't arrange childcare. I was the reliable one, the fixer, the one who kept things running when everyone else panicked. When COVID-19 hit, I designed the remote logistics protocol that kept our supply chain alive. No bonus that year, but Alberto gave me a handwritten card. It said I was management material. Funny how management material really meant someone you can lean on without ever promoting. Alicia had joined 4 months ago, fresh out of grad school. Smart, sure, but she'd never led a team, never negotiated with suppliers, never faced a 2 a.m. crisis when a shipment got stuck in customs. I watched her thank the team, say how humbled and honored she was. She even claimed she looked forward to learning from everyone, as if she hadn't just been handed the role I'd spent nearly a decade preparing for. After the meeting, I returned to my desk, closed the door, and sat in silence. Around me, the office buzzed, as always. Phones ringing, emails pinging, but I barely heard it. I stared at my laptop, feeling the heat well in my eyes. Then I opened a blank document and began to, no, not rant, not plead, not emote. I began to write a letter. Short, direct, professional. Subject, resignation notice. It would take effect in 2 weeks. I'd laid out my reasons, thanked the company for the experience, and offered to help with the transition. Then I added one last sentence, one that, for the first time in a long while, made me smile. Good luck to you, Alicia. I printed the letter, folded it, and slid it into an envelope. Packing my desk took half an hour. I left most of it behind. The folders, the notebooks, the internal guides I'd created over the years. I wasn't taking anything except my dignity. Walking toward Alberto's office, the envelope in my hand, I could already feel the air shift around me. He was talking with someone in the hallway. I waited. When he noticed me, he smiled as if nothing had changed. Soledad, excellent job on today's review. I handed him the envelope. What's this? He asked. My 2 weeks. He laughed, assuming I was joking, until he opened it. His expression hardened. You can't do this, he said, tension creeping into his voice. We need you right now. You have Alicia now, I replied, my tone cold as ice. I'm sure she'll manage. That was when his voice rose. Soledad, don't be impulsive. This isn't professional. You're reacting emotionally. Think about your daughter. Think about your career. I met his gaze. I'm thinking about both. Then I turned on my heel and walked away. I didn't look back, but even before I reached my car, I knew this was only the beginning. On Monday, after handing in my resignation, I arrived at the office at 7:45, 15 minutes earlier than usual. Not to prove anything, but because I wanted the next 2 weeks to be clean, controlled, and entirely on my terms. Alicia was already at her new desk, my old desk, if we're being honest, adrift between 3 monitors and a tangled mess of paperwork. Her face lit up when she saw me. Soledad, I was hoping you'd get here early, she said, her relief plain. I could use a little help understanding the second quarter vendor reconciliation report. I nodded. Of course. Let's go through it. I pulled up the supply tracker I'd built from scratch over 5 years. A system linking active orders, price levels, delivery schedules, and incident reports from 12 different vendors in real time. Alicia blinked at the interface as though she were staring at ancient runes. How did you set this up? She asked. Just experience, I said gently. We spent the next hour reviewing critical accounts, Westbrook machinery, Holdron metals, and components copper splice. Together, they made up more than 40% of our monthly revenue. Each had its own unique contract terms, delivery deadlines, and quirks that could only be learned through time and navigating the occasional crisis. I handed her a printed copy of the client protocols I'd written and kept updated like a personal Bible. She looked overwhelmed. I didn't realize it was this intricate, she admitted. That's what operations are, I told her. It looks like spreadsheets, but it's really about relationships, timing, and knowing what can go wrong before it does. Alberto passed by halfway through our conversation. He paused at the glass doorway, knocking once before stepping in. Good morning, ladies, he said, a little too cheerfully. How's the handover going? Alicia gave a small, uneasy smile. Soledad's been amazing. There's just a lot more to it than I expected. Alberto shot me a quick glance, as if trying to read my face. Well, you're in good hands, he said. Soledad has been our backbone. That's why I'm glad you'll be here during the transition, he said. I didn't reply. The silence stretched a beat too long, so he changed his tone. I was thinking we could all meet later today to go over the upcoming third quarter launch. Does that work for you? Alicia nodded quickly. I just said, let me know the time. After he left, Alicia turned back to me. He told me you built most of these processes, but I hadn't realized just how dependent everything is on your work. I said nothing. She was right, and she was beginning to see it. That afternoon, at 3 o'clock, We gathered in the small strategy room to discuss the third quarter launch. The room had a whiteboard, a speakerphone, and a faint coffee-stained scent that never seemed to leave. Alberto started things off. So, Alicia, walk us through your proposed updates to the launch schedule. Alicia stood, clearly nervous, trying her best to hide it. She began explaining that she wanted to simplify some of our communications with suppliers by consolidating points of contact and automating reports through a new SaaS platform her business school cohort had recommended. I listened. To her credit, Alicia had ideas, but none accounted for the messy realities of industrial manufacturing. Last-minute production delays, shipments held up in customs, weather disruptions. Suppliers we worked with didn't always react well to automation or unfamiliar systems. Some still used fax machines. Alberto nodded through her presentation. Fresh thinking. That's exactly what we need. He looked at me. Soledad, your thoughts? I kept my voice neutral. In theory, some of these tools could be useful, but our current suppliers are extremely sensitive to change. Rolling something like this out would require 6 months of pilot testing and face-to-face training. Alberto's expression tightened. Resistance to innovation is exactly what keeps us stuck. I raised an eyebrow. Is it resistance or reality? Alicia shifted in her chair. Alberto tapped his pen against the table and said nothing. After the meeting, I returned to my desk and found a voicemail from one of our biggest clients, Westbrook Machinery. Soledad, it's Tomas, the voice said. I'm not sure who to talk to about the delayed shipment to Seville. We've got a crew waiting. Can you call me? It had begun. I forwarded the message to Alicia, copied Alberto, and added a short note. This is the kind of issue that requires immediate escalation to Tucson Transport. Recommend calling David directly. His number is in the supplier folder. An hour later, I passed by Alicia's desk. She was still typing an email. Did you call David in Tucson? I asked gently. No, I emailed him instead. Figured I'd give him time to respond, she said. I paused. David is 67 years old. He doesn't check his email after 3 p.m., and Seville is an urgent delivery. You'll want to call him now. Alicia's face went pale. She picked up the phone. I kept walking. Later that night, I sat on my sofa, a glass of wine in one hand, my laptop open in front of me. My daughter Olivia peeked in from the hallway. Are you okay? She asked. I nodded. Just a long day. You look tired, she said, but proud. I smiled. I handed off work they thought I could never step away from. And now they're realizing I wasn't just filling a chair. She came over and sat beside me. I'm proud of you too, she said. They'll see what they lost, and you'll build something better. By Thursday morning, cracks had already begun to show. When I walked into the office, Alicia was staring at the printer as if it had personally offended her. She looked up with an awkward smile. The shipping logs aren't printing right. The formatting's all off. One glance was all I needed to spot the issue. She was pulling the logs from the internal summary instead of the master file. A rookie mistake. One I might have made in my first month, not in my fourth. I fixed it, gave her a quick explanation of the difference between the two files, and headed to my desk. Minutes later, an email arrived from Copper Splice Components. Subject line, urgent invoice discrepancy. They were one of our most detail-sensitive accounts. Even a €10 difference meant immediate red flags. The email read, Last month we were quoted a 6.7% discount for the Tucson batch order, but the new invoice shows full price. Please clarify within the next 4 hours, or we will suspend this purchase order until resolved. I checked the records. The discount had been agreed to verbally and noted in the CRM under my username. Alicia hadn't included it in the export file she used to issue the invoice. I sighed. This wasn't sabotage. It was inexperience. But to a client, that didn't matter. Their trust in us depended on flawless execution, not excuses. I walked over to Alicia's desk. Did you send Copper Splice's invoice? I asked. She nodded. Why? They're pausing the purchase order. You missed the negotiated discount. She blinked. Wait, Alberto told me to go by the standard price sheet, and I told Copper Splice we'd adjust this one because of last quarter's freight delays. It's in the CRM notes. Alicia was genuinely panicked. Should I call them? You have to. Apologize and fix the invoice before 10. She glanced at the clock. 9:17. I'll help you, I added, because I couldn't help myself. I didn't want her to fail. Not really. I just wanted someone to understand that I hadn't failed. Later that afternoon, Alberto called me into his office. He looked tired, hollow eyes, rumpled shirt. A man used to control now juggling shards of broken glass. I heard about Copper Splice, he said, without looking at me. Alicia says you helped fix it. Yes, I replied, but this is going to keep happening. He looked up sharply. Why would you say that? Because you gave her a role she's not ready for, I said evenly, and you're asking her to lead a system she doesn't understand. Alberto leaned back and exhaled. Soledad, look, I know you're frustrated. I know you feel overlooked. But this kind of attitude isn't going to help your reputation in the industry. I almost laughed. Reputation, as if it hadn't taken me years to build, as if I hadn't earned it email by email, crisis by crisis. I have been nothing but professional, Alberto, I said. You wanted a clean transition, and I've made sure you got one. He didn't answer, just stared at his desk like it might hand him a solution. By the following week, the strain had started to seep outside the building. Westbrook Machinery sent an email to their account manager, me, asking why no one had followed up on their last 4 inquiries. I forwarded it to Alicia. She replied with an auto template. Working on it. They answered, we need a person, not a placeholder. Then came the voicemail from HowlRound Metal's operations director. Soledad, we've had 3 requests to reschedule your replacement, and it's causing problems on our production side. Please tell us who's in charge now, because honestly, doesn't feel like anyone is. That night, I was at home when my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Is this Soledad Herrera? A voice asked. Yes. Who's calling? My name is Miguel Alvarez. I'm the operations director at Argon Supplies. We've heard you're wrapping up at Tecnopuente. Would you be open to a conversation? I straightened. How did you find that out? News travels, he said, especially when key clients start asking where their person went. We've been following your work for some time. Copper Splice, Westbrook, even Morrison, all speak very highly of you. We're expanding into the Southwest, and frankly, we need someone like you. Miguel continued, we're offering a senior level position, higher pay, full authority. You can bring your client relationships if they choose to follow. Something tightened in my chest. Not fear, not pride, but relief. For 8 years, I had carried an entire department on my back, and only now was someone truly seeing it. I'd be delighted to arrange a meeting, I said. Excellent, he replied. My assistant will reach out in the morning. The next day, I walked into Tecnopuente feeling different, as though I had already left. Passing Alicia's office, I saw her reprinting another client schedule. The timestamp showed it had already been sent. The wrong version, again. She looked up and smiled nervously. I'll fix it. I know you will, I said. By my final Monday at Tecnopuente, the air itself had shifted. No longer the usual buzz, only a low, disjointed hum. Emails lagged, clients grew restless, voices dropped to whispers. Everyone could feel it. The seams were beginning to split. That morning, I had a second call with Miguel Alvarez. He sounded even more eager than before. We'd like to formally offer you the position, he said. Regional Operations Director. Your decisions on team structure, vendors, hiring. Complete autonomy. And the accounts Edo's been handling? I asked. Miguel laughed. If even half of them follow you, they'll more than cover your first year's salary. I paused, then asked the one lingering question in the back of my mind. Would you want me to bring anyone else from Tecnopuente? Only if they're good, he replied simply. The call ended with a verbal agreement and a pending contract. My future was shifting quietly, cleanly, like turning the page of a book mid-sentence. At 10:42 a.m., Alberto called me to his office. His voice over the intercom was tight, strained. Soledad, could you step in for a moment? I entered and saw the signs instantly. Scattered papers, untouched coffee, a man unraveling behind a polished desk. He didn't ask me to sit. We lost Howround Metals this morning, he said flatly. They pulled their third quarter orders and will reassess partnerships before year's end. I nodded slowly. I'm assuming they copied you on the email. Yes. Alberto rubbed the bridge of his nose. They mentioned transition problems, sloppy communication, incomplete delivery schedules, and they're not wrong. Silence, then, Soledad, I think we acted too quickly. My eyebrows lifted. I mean, maybe we didn't think through the leadership change. Alicia is talented, but maybe she's not ready. I said nothing. I've spoken with corporate, he went on. There might be an opportunity to bring you back into a leadership role, director level. You'd be paired with Alicia, but you'd have final say in all operational decisions. I almost laughed. The very job they had denied me, now offered, with strings attached. I appreciate it, I said evenly, but I already have an offer. Alberto's face froze. What? I've accepted a position somewhere else. Same title, better pay, full control, and I won't have to share desk space with someone who just learned how to read a freight report. He didn't blink, just stared, as if trying to pull time backward. You haven't even finished your 2 weeks, he said. No, I replied, but after what you did, I don't owe you loyalty. He moved around the desk, arms crossed. Do you know how this looks? Abandoning ship, taking clients. That's practically unethical. My jaw tightened. You're the one who treated me like a placeholder, I said. Clients follow people they trust. I never signed a non-compete. And if you're worried about ethics, start with how Alicia was promoted. Alberto stepped back, color rising in his cheeks. You can't do this. I already did. He pointed at me. You can't just take what we built. I looked at him calmly. You didn't build it, Alberto. I did. And I'm only taking myself. That afternoon, Alicia knocked on my door. Her expression was caught somewhere between panic and guilt. Copper Splice sent another complaint, she said. Something about shipping schedules again. I'm trying to fix it, but it's... She paused. It's harder than I thought. I gestured to a chair. What do you need help with? She hesitated. Everything. I helped her rewrite the email response, walked her through the supplier's expectations, and reorganized the spreadsheet she'd been working with. She watched me, overwhelmed, but still trying to keep pace. After a while, she exhaled. You must hate me. I looked at her for a long moment. I don't, I said. I hate that you were put into a role you weren't prepared for. I hate that my work wasn't recognized. But this mess isn't all yours. Alicia blinked, as if no one had ever separated her from Alberto before. She rose to leave, but stopped in the doorway. Are you really leaving? Yes. And the clients? They'll go where the work gets done, right? She nodded softly. I hope I can earn it. The respect. I gave her a small smile. Then start by listening to the people who built what you inherited. That night, I got a text from Tomas at Westbrook Machinery. Heard you're going to Argonne Supplies. Call me tomorrow. We're interested in talking. 30 minutes later, another message from Janet at Cooper Splice. The new contact at Tecnopuente is lost. If you go independent, we want in. I stared at both messages and felt something settle deep inside. I wasn't just leaving a job. I was stepping into something I had been building quietly all along. A network, a reputation, a system of trust. I spent my last Friday at Tecnopuente doing what most people wouldn't bother with: vendor manuals, escalation protocols, client preference sheets. Every detail I had been carrying in my head, I carefully documented and placed in a folder labeled Transition for Alicia. Not for Alberto, not for the company, for the people who would end up dealing with the fallout. The office was quiet, the kind of silence that isn't peaceful, just uncertain. The energy had shifted. Conversations were shorter. Eyes didn't linger. Even the receptionist gave me a longer look than usual as I walked by with a box under my arm. By 4 o'clock, I had packed the last of my belongings: a framed photo of Olivia from her sixth grade science fair, 2 notebooks filled with vendor diagrams and sketches, and a chipped coffee mug I never allowed anyone else to use. I left my security badge in HR, signed a single exit form, and just as I was about to leave, Alberto called me into his office. Just 5 minutes, he said, tense. I walked in. Alicia was already there, eyes wide as if caught off guard. Alberto stood by the window, arms crossed, shoulders rigid. We need to talk, he began, about the clients. I stayed silent. We've been getting calls, he continued, emails, concerns about the transition, delays, questions about your future plans. It's creating instability. That tends to happen, I replied evenly. When you remove the person holding all the threads together. Alberto exhaled sharply. This isn't sustainable. 2 major contracts are already under review, and another cancellation is pending. Alicia looked nervously between us. Alberto turned back to me. Soledad, if this continues, Tecnopuente could lose nearly 40% of its regional revenue. That's no longer my problem, I said flatly. You made it clear I wasn't essential. Alberto stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've made your point. We underestimated you, and you proved it. But if you think I'm going to sit back and let you take our clients, they're not your clients, I cut in. They're relationships built on trust. And when you broke that trust, they started looking elsewhere. Are you stealing them? No. His eyes narrowed. And what do you expect? That you just walk into a new company, bring them all with you, and we do nothing? I leaned forward slightly. You can try to stop people from leaving, Alberto. But if they're already halfway out the door, that's not theft. It's consequence. That evening, I had dinner with Olivia at our favorite Thai place, in the same booth by the window. We shared crispy duck and rice noodles. She noticed the calm in my face. Was it a strange day? She asked. I nodded. The kind that feels full circle. I'm proud of you, she said between bites. You could have burned it all down, but you didn't. I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is showing them what they've lost without ever raising your voice. She laughed. So, what now? I leaned back. Now, I build something no one can take from me. By the following week, the news had spread through the industry circles. Soledad Herrera had officially joined Argon Supplies as Regional Operations Director. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Clients, former colleagues, even some competitors reaching out. Are you free to meet next week? They asked. I'd be open to exploring a move, especially if you're building a team. I heard what happened at Tecnopuente. Frankly, it was about time someone made the smart choice and walked away. Miguel, my new boss, scheduled our orientation in Valencia. He personally flew me there. As we sat in the conference room, he leaned in and said, You were right. They weren't just buying the product, they were buying you. I nodded, and now they'd be buying me again, just in a better place. Back at Tecnopuente, the unraveling hadn't stopped. Holdron Metals officially pulled out of their third quarter agreement. Copper Splice began reviewing their year-long contract. Westbrook refused to speak to anyone but me. And Alicia, reportedly, had broken down in a meeting, overwhelmed by a backlog of communications and mounting pressure. By mid-month, Alberto had booked an emergency trip to corporate headquarters. Word was, the board wasn't just upset, they were furious. He made one last attempt to save face, sending an email from his personal account. Soledad, I'd like to request a private call. No hostility, just a chance to discuss our options. I stared at it for a long moment, then archived it. People think loyalty means staying silent while you're being sidelined. But real loyalty begins with yourself, with knowing your worth, and walking away the instant someone stops seeing it. Tecnopuente thought they could replace me in 4 months. They forgot I'd spent 8 years becoming irreplaceable. It had been 5 weeks since I left. 5 quiet, productive, deeply satisfying weeks. My office at Argon Supplies was still sparse. A few personal photos, my laptop, and a whiteboard full of planning notes. Yet, it felt entirely mine. Nothing here had been handed to me. No favors, no shortcuts. Just recognition earned the old-fashioned way, by showing up, doing the work, and delivering results. By then, 4 of my former clients had officially moved their accounts to us. No dramatic emails or public statements, just discreet paperwork, polite messages, and fresh purchase orders. Every one of them, in their own words, said the same thing. We won't risk our supply chain with someone who's still learning what you already know. I never promised perfection, only consistency. And in our industry, that's worth more than gold. One morning, while I was reviewing a new logistics contract, Miguel knocked on my door. You might want to see this, he said, holding a printed bulletin. I took the paper. The headline read, Tecnopuente Spain announces sudden leadership restructuring amid client departures. Alberto had officially resigned to pursue other opportunities, but everyone knew what that meant. A polite way of saying they'd lost too much to keep him. Alicia, the article stated, had been reassigned to a junior strategy analyst role under a mentor outside operations. The write-up didn't call it a demotion, but that's exactly what it was. They're bleeding, Miguel said, and they're not hiding it anymore. I set the paper aside, feeling not triumphant, not vindicated, just steady. Let's not chase their mistakes, I said. Let's focus on what we're building. Miguel smiled. That's why we brought you on. 2 days later, I received a LinkedIn message I never expected from Alicia. Hi, Soledad. I know it's probably strange to hear from me, but I just wanted to say thank you for everything you left behind. Your documentation, your guides. I've been using them every single day. I didn't realize how much went into what you did, not until I had to do it myself. I'm sorry for how it all played out. I was promoted because of who I knew, not because of what I knew, and I paid the price for that mistake. Now, I'm learning the right way. I hope one day I'll earn the kind of trust people once had in you. I truly hope so. I sat with her message for a while before responding. Hi, Alicia. That position should never have been dropped onto your shoulders the way it was. You didn't ask for it, but you stepped in and tried. That matters. Keep learning. Be better than the people who set you up to fail. And next time someone offers you a title you haven't earned, ask why. Then ask who it should have gone to. You'll go far if you remember that. She replied simply, I will. Weeks turned into months. Argon supplies grew, and my team expanded. I hired 2 former colleagues from Tecnopuente, people who had also felt invisible under Alberto's leadership. Together, we built stronger systems, better processes, and a culture rooted in respect, not hierarchy. One afternoon, my daughter Olivia dropped by the office. She was shadowing me for a school project on leadership. After hours of watching meetings, calls, and my scribbles on the whiteboard, she asked, Mom, how do you know who to trust? I paused. You watch who shows up when there are no spotlights, who delivers when no one's clapping. Those are the people you build with. She nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. And now, you're the boss, right? I laughed. Technically, but the real kind, the kind people want to work with. That thought stayed with me for days. One night, I sat outside on the back porch, laptop closed, wine in hand. The wind moved through the trees, and the world felt quiet again. Not because life was suddenly easy, but because the noise had changed. For 8 years, I chased approval, promotions, recognition that always seemed just out of reach. And when I finally walked away, I realized I didn't need anyone to give me value. I already had it. Alberto's biggest mistake wasn't promoting his niece. It was assuming I'd stay anyway. He thought I needed him more than he needed me. He never understood that when someone with experience, integrity, and relationships leaves, they take much more than a desk supply box. They take trust, and trust doesn't stay behind for the next in line. So, what would you have done in my place? Would you have fought for the promotion you deserved? Or would you have built something entirely new, where your talent was truly valued? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced nepotism at work? How did you handle it when someone less qualified was promoted? And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing we have such a diverse audience. If this story of professional justice and finding your true worth inspired you, give it a like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming workplace injustice and building success on your own terms.